All right, part two of my presentation, the effect of inequality on democracy. When we allow for a system to continue to thrive, knowing the injustices are done based on socioeconomic status, there is a domino effect set in place. Teaching our children that they are only worthy of a decent education if they can afford one teaches them that their worth can be equated to a dollar value. Politicians with no background in politics, no love of country, no respect for fellow man, are therefore the natural heir to our thrones. Despite the growing ideological divisions of our age, there has been a surprising political convergence on some issues related to urban policy, social services, and housing. The Obama administration's embrace of urban charter schools and school choice is emblematic of this convergence, yet, in fact, charter schools are even more segregated than regular public schools. Segal argues that we must look to Canada and to their specifically successful education policies that call for us to cut down on financial waste and to offer more resources to our suffering schools while focusing on empowering principals by giving them autonomy in exchange for performance accountability. Basically, she argues that by giving administrators greater freedom, they can be held to higher standards. Like plants growing towards sunlight, students are expected to sit in rows facing the lecturing teacher at the front, the unilateral authority who tells them what things mean, what to do, and how to become people who fit into society as it is. We ought to be teaching our children to think for themselves, intuit their own ideas, and to then speak for those ideas, and above all, to question their place and why it is that the system is set up in such a way that the few benefit and the many suffer. In their unrestrained eagerness to possess, the oppressors develop the conviction that it is possible for them to transform everything into objects of their purchasing power, hence their strictly materialistic concept of existence. We cannot allow our children to think of their education as just another material commodity to be bought or sold. They must believe that they as citizens of our nation are entitled to an education as are all other people regardless of socioeconomic status. Children are made to feel ashamed if they perform worse than their peers and proud if they perform better. Shame leads some to drop out psychologically from the educational endeavor or to struggle constantly with the sense of inferiority. Children who come from a place of lesser means, lower standards of living, and greater adversity ought to be the kids we focus most on, striving to give them the very best tools with which to combat their situation, and somehow we've done the very opposite. No one could assert that government officials set out to create segregated schools, but they abetted their creation simply by citing and building schools to fit the racially and economically separate setup that discrimination created. Even though segregation was not desirable, it became a given in the education of thousands and thousands of the city's children. Whoever began the process is less important at this point than who it is that stands up for change, for revolution, for a new education. Equality is supposed to be at the core of what is fundamentally American. Clearly, we have begun a country steeped in the blood of the natives and built one on the broken backs and beaten spirits of slaves. However, if we claim to now be a united country proud to offer a higher standard of living to all who can work to achieve one, then let us begin at the very start with education.